Oh, Captain, my Captain. These are the Club Fantasy DFS Showdown slate breakdown videos. I am the Captain, Joshua Hudson. This is my compass, Austin Amandolia. In this episode, we are breaking down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Detroit Lions. Here on the Club Fantasy FFL YouTube page, you will find videos breaking down all of the games for the divisional round weekend. The Texans versus the Ravens, Packers versus the 49ers, as well as the Chiefs versus the Bills. And Austin, let's just start with, this is a rematch from back in week 6 when the Lions beat the Bucs in Tampa 20-6. These teams are now going to Detroit to play. What can we expect differently from this game outside of stout run defenses, because neither of these teams top 50 rushing yards in week 6?
Yeah, I mean, think it's going to be more of the same. Both of these run defenses are still pretty good, and their pass defenses both suck. So I would not be shocked if there's over 600 combined yards of passing volume in this game between the two teams. So lock in those receivers and, hey, get frisky with the quarterback.
So what you're saying is you're not having any type of contrarian lineup with a defense in your captain spot. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that is definitely what you're hearing. I rarely do that anyways. Definitely not in this spot.
Austin doesn't live life on the edge, apparently. All right, speaking of captains, that's what this show is about. We've got some fun segments laid out, and with everything DFS related, we always want to talk about the chalk, and this first segment is no different. Captain Chalk, this is the play that everybody is likely to be putting in their captain spot because they are just that damn good. And Austin, let's just lead off with the Sun God.
Yeah, once again, Amon-Ra St Brown is our chalk captain. Just because the Philadelphia Eagles couldn't figure it out against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers does not mean that I trust this pass defense. This pass defense has been awful down the stretch, and Amon-Ra St Brown has been as consistent as possible. He has 5 consecutive games with at least 20 DraftKings points. When these teams played earlier this year, he caught 12 catches on 15 targets for 124 yards and a touchdown. I see no reason to think that that could change in this matchup. There's nothing that really surprises me or makes me feel like the Buccaneers are doing stuff differently. The only thing they did differently last week was blitz the crap out of the Eagles, and the Eagles just didn't adjust. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Ben Johnson has job interviews on the line, and he's going to be, well, Brian Johnson did too, but Ben Johnson is going to be ready to adjust. And you got David Montgomery, you got Sam LaPorta, you got some guys that can provide chip help and pass block. I'm not worried about the blitz getting to the Lions this week.
All right, and for every captain, there's always people that want the job. This next segment is the Mutineer. It's the contrarian captain choice that offers a variety and a little upside in larger tournaments. You talk about pass catchers, and both of these teams struggle with the pass defense. Let's stay on the Lions side here because I'm a big fan of Sam LaPorta this week.
Yeah, Sam LaPorta has a good spot this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, just because the Eagles couldn't figure it out.
Dude, Dallas Goedert caught a touchdown. Stop with this.
Should have done it more, is all I'm saying. But Dallas Goedert did catch a touchdown to the point of Sam LaPorta, which was good. Tampa Bay has been allowing 18 points per game to the tight end position since week 15. That includes last week against Dallas Goedert, by the way. So they're giving it up. And Sam LaPorta, if you look at his stat line, go check out his fantasy points from the last time these two teams played, you're probably really bummed because he went for 36 and that was it. The upside is that he had 11 targets. So somehow he only caught 4 catches out of those 11 targets. That is not likely to continue. I think that this is like early season Jared Goff, Sam LaPorta getting their chemistry together. They have their chemistry now. I like Sam LaPorta.
We all know that Jared Goff is better at home. And even on the road in this game, Jared Goff in week 6 had 353 passing yards. Sam LaPorta is going to be just fine. But on the flip side of that, Tampa Bay's leading receiver from week 6 is another player that you're kind of eyeing as an alternate captain here this week.
Yeah, that's right. Chris Godwin did lead the Buccaneers in week 6 with 77 receiving yards and 6 catches, which isn't mind-blowing. The Buccaneers didn't pass for as many yards as you would like to see in this game, but I think the Lions secondary was better earlier in the season, surprisingly enough, and they've gotten worse down the stretch. So I think that Chris Godwin could have a better week this week. First off, did you see what Puka Nacua just did against this team? Chris Godwin is in that same mold where he's a really good route runner and he loves getting the underneath catches and getting yards after catch. So I like Chris Godwin in this spot. I'm just waiting for the Godwin pop-off week to come. I know it's there. I know he has the upside potential, and he's going to continue to be one of the highest upside contrarian captain options you can have. People are going to play Amon-Ra St. Brown. People are going to play Mike Evans. People are going to play Sam LaPorta. They'll probably even play Jahmyr Gibbs. Chris Godwin is in a really easy spot to get overlooked, which is why I want to lean into him this week.
I like it. All right, our next category here is going to be the first mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew. These are the guys that you want to put in your lineups to help maximize your point totals. Let's stick with Chris Godwin's running mate. I love this because he could always go 2 for 2, right?
Yeah. So there's Mike Evans.
There you go.
Love Mike Evans. He's been so consistent this year. First off, with Mike Evans, he could always just go 2 for 2 and 2. Like that's the Mike Evans stat line. That's my favorite stat line ever. It's when he caught those 2 catches for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. And those 2 touchdowns is going to be enough for your lineup. More importantly, though, Baker Mayfield loves chunking the ball down the field to him. He got so many down the field targets last week. The Eagles are lucky that he dropped a couple of those. Mike Evans should have put up like 30, 40 points last week because he could have gotten a ton of yards. And I think they're going to continue trying to do the same this week. Again, this Detroit secondary is rough. They've allowed over 50 points to the receiver position since week 15 per game. That's a ton. Mike Evans could just have a ball.
All of this bringing up last week, I'm going to go bawl my eyes out after we finish recording this video, Austin. I just want to let you know that. But speaking of pass catchers, you've got another one here that I'm kind of interested in, only because he's been really consistent and he stepped up even last week against his old team.
Yeah, that's right. Josh Reynolds, he's quietly like the wide receiver 2 in this offense, outside of when you're just looking at the receivers, at least. Obviously, if you're looking at all pass catchers, Sam LaPorta becomes that second receiving option. But Josh Reynolds, he's been very consistent. And more importantly, for game script purposes, Tampa Bay has been really good against the run. So much so that the Eagles just didn't even try to run the ball against them. So I want to target the receivers in this matchup. It was right there. It was just, I had to say it. But Reynolds is consistently the second receiver. He gets enough targets. He can easily score 10 points just off of receptions alone. And then if he gets in the end zone, he's doing really good. So it's just safe floor with Josh Reynolds. And I think there is actually some ceiling here.
I also think it's interesting that Josh Reynolds is priced at $1,200 more than Jameson Williams. That just goes to show you the usage rates here between those two guys. Next category here is going to be the deck scrubbers. These are going to be your cheaper punt play options to help make a lineup based on one play and limited opportunity. We talked about this guy last week, and you know what? Trey Palmer came out and had a nice big game because, Eagle secondary can't cover shit.
Yeah, so I don't think this is going to happen because the secondary just refuses to tackle this week. But I do like Trey Palmer. He does line up out wide and in the slot, so he does a little bit of both. And similar to Chris Godwin, similar to Puka Nacua, he is a good route runner. I'm not saying he's on the level of those guys, but that was one of his prowesses in college. He's a good route runner, and he can take the top off the defense. So he's kind of in that. He's like a deeply discounted Chris Olave. I don't want to say he's Chris Olave, but like the way Chris Olave can run solid routes and still get down the field, Trey Palmer can do the same. He's not going to hit the upside of those guys like Olave and Godwin, but he does enough that he's very relevant in this offense. So I love him for that spot. On the other side of the ball, I love Kalif Raymond. He's always a fun player to throw into your showdown lineup when you're playing Detroit Lions because he can just catch that bomb down the field. That Philadelphia apparently couldn't make happen on Tampa Bay. I think the Lions can make it happen on this defense. So have Kalif Raymond as one of your options in your player pool. especially with this slate of all of them, there's a lot of expensive players. There's a lot of players that you're going to want to fit in your lineup, such as guys we've already talked about: St. Brown, Godwin, LaPorta, Mike Evans. Those are all expensive players, so you're going to have to really punt if you want to squeeze those guys in your lineup. That's not even mentioning the quarterbacks, and if you want to try and put a running back in your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the cheapest player that I would even consider playing is Devin Tompkins at 1,200. It's so like all of these guys are so expensive, just in terms of like a traditional showdown setup. So it definitely has you like, all right, you got to get very calculated with a lot of these picks. So before we get into the last segment, I want to remind everybody that if you go to the description of this video, you can play these showdown slates against us on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Austin, tell the people what those links ultimately take them to do.
Yeah, we have leagues on both DraftKings and FanDuel. We have weekly contests in both leagues, and on DraftKings this week, we're going to have showdown slate games available both for the Green Bay San Francisco game that is on Saturday night and the Kansas City Buffalo game on Sunday night. So each of the primetime games, you'll be able to play along with us and try and take our money.
Yeah, take our money. Come get some. Come on. All right. Every captain needs a villain. In this last segment, it's the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. And the Austin, a little intrigued, I guess, by these two picks, because both of them had pretty solid games last week against a really shitty defense. And you've spent literally this entire video talking about how terrible the Detroit Lions defense is.
Yeah, the issue with this is I feel like both of these players, they had such weird ways that they hit last week. So first off, Cade Otton. Last week to me was such an outlier. It was such a game planning move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to target the tight end spot against this Philadelphia Eagles defense that has struggled against tight ends throughout the year. I don't count on that happening again, in particular because I think the receivers are going to do better this week, and they're not going to need to rely on Cade Otton as much to help move the ball down the field. I think Chris Godwin's going to be more relevant. Trey Palmer will be out there, and Mike Evans will be able to get the ball down the field. So I'm not chasing that same volume that I saw from Cade Otton last week. The thing about him too that is very important to note is he hasn't had more than 8 targets hardly at all this season, let alone 8 catches, which is what he did last week. So I'm throwing out last week as an outlier. I'm going to avoid chasing that too much. Another player I'm not chasing too much is David Moore, mostly because the Lions can at least tackle. Like, he scores that touchdown because of poor tackling. He doesn't score because he was schemed to get to get a red zone target or to get a down the field go route. He scored a touchdown because people couldn't tackle. And I don't think that you can count on that for consistency week to week. So I'm going to be avoiding him this week.
All right. That is Austin at Austin _FFL. I am Josh Hudson at the One Hudsonian. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Club Fantasy FFL. Be sure to stay on YouTube and check out the rest of our divisional round DFS showdown previews. This has broken down the Bucs versus the Lions. You can also find the Texans versus Ravens, the Packers versus 49ers, and the Chiefs versus the Bills. We'll see you for the next video.